Alright, so this is going to be something a wee bit different. This is going to be a design vlog for my Halloween game, which is called Clean Up in Aisle 9. This is a follow-on from two previous year Dead of Night one-shots that I do for my server on RPG Nook. And I thought I'd do a little vlog design sort of along for it, just to show a different way of how to design, which is far more visual and artistic than just sitting down with a pen and paper, which is done for the majority of my other stuff. This one is a little bit different. Because it is a one-shot, it's going to be designed from the ground up in 14 to 20 days. It's going to be very minimalistic in its writing, and it's going to rely a lot more on its visuals, on how the story is told, what I want to show, and what I want the players to do. So it's going to be a 6,000 word scenario like the other ones. Here on the screen you can see this is the sort of, I do these front page like newspapers for the sort of hook and handout to the start of the game, and this was the very first one 2 years ago. Home is where the heart is, and this one this year is actually a follow-up to this. It's be a sequel. It's set in a small sort of mysterious place called Twin Lakes, which is obviously ripped off from Twin Peaks. Follows along in that vein of weird and mysterious. It's a sort of a spoof and sort of black comedy sort of take on horror, because we usually do horror all year long. This is a particularly sort of more letting the players blow off steam with ridiculous and comedic style sort of game, and it's gone down well the last 2 years, and it's a place I like to revisit every so often, because I quite like the characters I've built into it. I quite like the setting, and it's something I want to sort of like expand and open up the sort of spotlight on it. Just now, this Twin Lakes is a very small, narrow area where I've not really told any major stories in, but I've got some ideas so to sort of branch it out. And this one was basically, it was an old orphanage where an old woman was sort of using the blood of orphans to stay young, and patrons would come and bathe in their blood. It was bulldozed and made way for the Happy Mart, which we're going to be setting the new game in. So we're taking this sort of premise to its final conclusion, basically, and that's where we're going to start. So from there, I do these. I mean, this is the basics of what I do for most of my scenarios, but this one is basically the sort of start of it. So here we've got the breakdown of what I wanted for this scenario. Must have a presence contest. I was thinking supermarket sweep with Dale Winton sort of idea. That's what the players were going to be, the contestants or the customers. That has changed already, but there must be some sort of competition or sort of a discount involved, and to really bring in the sort of the customers and create chaos. I wanted to use Chucky dolls and rip off the entire genre of sort of living dolls for this one. It's sort of like a trope that I was quite interested in. I was watching a couple of films and doing a bit of research, and I thought that'd be fun to do. So I wanted a contest which turns violent, and then I went Dolls of Doom, and that's pretty much all I wanted. And from there, I was looking back at the first scenario, which deals with the sort of this heart which is buried in the basement. It's the heart of the old woman, which is controlling the house and creating this sort of phantom house that kind of all these veins coming through the wall. With this mansion leveled and the supermarket being built on top of it, these veins are still here, still in the actual ground of the sort of the foundations that this new supermarket's been built on. So I wanted to use that and a sort of play on the sort of like overworked employees and all the sort of meats that are going off because all the frozen sections being defrosted, and all this blood's leaking into the foundations and reviving these sort of like veins in the foundations, and they'll start to grow again and start to take over all the frozen meats. So we'll have frozen meat demons, hopefully, or frozen meat tentacle demons coming the player's way. And yeah, there's going to be like challenges. Going to have security and people on the customer service, a greeter, someone could play the manager, and all that sort of good stuff. And with that, I'm probably going to have a bit of a chew on getting enough pictures for customers to keep them busy. But that's another story. So from here, I moved on to this. This is pretty much the concept I was going for. Just a quick wee sketch, just to sort of nail down straight away what I was looking at. So I wanted some frozen meats. I was playing around with a couple sort of goofy ideas, and I quite like this face here. This sort of little doll, sort of almost like a Chucky Annabelle sort of thing. And that's what I was going to go with. It would have like a sort of metal sort of goofy skeleton underneath it, and I think that would be good enough. So that's pretty much all the research, or well, not research, but design I wanted to do to get started. From there, I just went on to design the doll. So that's just changed her into a sort of vector. Did all the sort of thing. This is really simple drawings. I wanted a style for this that is quick and easy, and this is very, very quick and easy. Sort of just very simple, broad strokes, and then just filled, and it's cut around and then shaded. This took about maybe half an hour to an hour to do, and that's how I wanted to, sort of stylize these games, because these games are basically, they're not throwaway, but they're not what I do a lot. So when I do them, I want them to be done fast. And these are the sort of things that I kind of go for. A really nice simple style, but it's got a visual style which is quite, engaging. So there, I went to create the newspaper for this year's actual scenario. So we've just sort of grey toned the doll. We've added a few things in here for the paper. We've got a nice little discount. Grayson's Farm, freshly killed turkeys. Want to do something with Grayson's Farm eventually, maybe next year. We'll do Grayson's Farm. I want them to be sort of like not stereotypical sort of murderers or sort of basement dwellers or anything like that, but a sort of nice take on the sort of the UFO sort of mutilated cow sort of idea. Is what I want to do with the Graysons. Perhaps that might change, who knows, but that's something for next year. So what I like to do here is like give a little blurb about basically the hook. This is given to the players, this is what they know, and down here I give 3 little sort of like little stories that are basically just tie-ins to what I could be doing at other times, to kind of broaden out the scope of what Twin Lakes is all about. So I've got some LARPers, some supernatural LARPers. They're going to be like actual vampires mixed in with like just people LARPing as vampires. Got like sort of mention of sort of a large catch that was sort of like playback to last year's scenario, Final Cut, which had a big massive moray eel in one of the lakes that went about killing people. It also might tie into another one I want to do set in the summertime, a sort of Piranha 3D sort of like scenario where everyone's out having a sort of good time during the summer break, and we'll go to Blood Lake or something like that. And over here we mention the Autumn House, which is the old folks home that Mrs. Montgomery got put into when she was taken away from the orphanage, and she's still there. So this is like a little play into that. There's another thing I might want to do, and yeah, that's pretty much where I am just now with this design. So from here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to come up with 6 or so characters for the players to choose from, and I'll be back with them in a bit. Okay, so day 2 of doing this Halloween project. We have the pre-gens made, or at least the images made. Their backgrounds are a little shaky still, but we've got a good idea of what we want to do. So these are the pre-gens I'm going to offer the players. Most of them have already taken them. We have Reese, who's the deli meat specialist. We have Debbie, who's the greeter and sort of unflappable sort of know-it-all. We've got Brian, the 95-year-old trolley boy, who has an electric scooter to help him around. We have Josh, the sort of warehouse logistics expert. And we have David, who is going to be the Steven Seagal fanatic security guard, and Patricia, the mother of five dead inside lifer at the supermarket sort of chain. Below that, we have Maggie, who's going to be the 16-year-old manager, and obviously the little Maggie dolls as well. These are pretty much the images we're going to start basing and building our scenario off of, using these in sort of interesting ways. So far, David's been the least sort of liked. No one really jumped on him. Reese was fought over. Debbie is quite liked. Brian was instantly taken. Patricia had a lot of interest, and so did Josh. He had a little bit of interest as well. So this gives you an idea of what the players were actually sort of vying for when they're sort of like running to grab their toys. So we might have to make David a little bit more interesting and see if we can make him a little bit more appealing. Other than that, they seem to have hit their mark pretty well. From here, we've still not really done much with the story. We've started to broaden out the horizons of what we want the sort of Maggie doll to do, and how we're going to tie that back into the first scenario, Home's Where the Heart Is. We're going to have the evil ganglion and veins still in the foundations are going to leak into the meats and start to bind them together, and then they'll find the AI toys, perhaps because they've got AI brains, and it will give the sort of the body a brain almost, and the two will become one sort of creature. But how we're going to portray this to the players and what they're going to be doing for most of the scenario is starting to sort of gel together in my mind a little bit more. So we started to do a bit more visuals on what the final beast will look like, and this is sort of like conglomeration of like turkeys, Christmas turkeys with teeth around the sort of neck hole and the asshole, with massive veins coming out and grabbing these sort of dolls, and the dolls having like pre-recorded like little messages, like, and these sort of things will constantly going off when the sort of lights go out in the second act, perhaps. But this will be the finale, big demon thing, and I think the sort of the whole way the actual supermarket scenario is going to work is they're going to be like lots and lots of customers, and it's their job to make as many survive as possible, and that's how they'll sort of either succeed or fail at the scenario. It's not really about them, it's more about the sort of customers, which brings me round to the problem of gonna need a lot of pictures for a lot of interesting customers. So what we've done, what we're probably going to do is we're going to mine past scenarios for our pictures. These are the ones from last year. This is Crystal, that's Pablo, Tim the tech guy. We've got the sort of director and Chad over here. We've got a few down here as well. This is our cast. The old ones from the first one are black and white. I quite like the idea of doing it all black and white, but quickly sort of decided against it after the sort of first one. So I'm not sure if they're usable, or maybe I can recolor them and see if we can use them as well. But mostly it's going to probably be this lot down here that get used, and we'll try and do a few others as well. But I'm looking for maybe close to 25 customers, and maybe we'll do that. So we started to troll the people of Walmart sites and looking into what they can actually offer us for inspiration. Doing that as well, I've got also my lass who used to be working TK Maxx, so she's got a lot of horror stories as well, and she's a big fan of these things. So I'm going to sort of mine her for information as well. But the premise is pretty much going to be this. I think a grand opening of the Happy Mart. Protests outside, protesting leveling of the grade 3 listed building. Evils in the wall, the reawakening of the veins. We have the hot new toy that the parents want for Christmas, which is the driving hook for all these customers coming into the store. And then we've got the people of Walmart style customers. Each of them needs a sort of thing, and they need to be placated by the players, at least in the first act, and they can also give information or a gift of maybe a clue or two of what's going on, really, using their sort of like everyday banter to tell the story to the players. Some are helpful, some are hindering, some will be lies, some will be truths. Basically, that's how that's going to play out, hopefully. So it's all going to be down to how these customers are taken, how good they're played out, basically. So the first act is going to be the customer's always right. So you basically got to play to their whims. The sort of store is always going to make you do these things. They sort of like puke up in the aisles, fight, steal stuff, and become difficult. You've just got to like placate them again and again. It's kind of what I'm doing with Grave Robbers, really, in a way. Perhaps it's a little bit too similar to this. Who knows? We'll see if they sort of realise that. But it's kind of what I'm doing there. But there was more of a buy-in. Is it the same thing? Am I just doing the same thing? Fuck it, who knows? Right, Act 2, basically, can I speak to the manager? Shit goes down, the protesters outside cut the power and surround the building and start to like throw Molotovs through the windows and all the rest of it. Everyone gets scared. All these hundreds of dolls, which are scattered now around the entire store, start to absorb the fear and anger. They sort of react to emotion, and they're pre-programmed to sort of like be care dolls and that sort of thing. But with anger and fear, they sort of like act a little bit differently, and that's what draws the sort of veins to them out the wall in Act 2. So basically, Act 2 is basically the players will have to go get all the dolls back. They have to like round them up, essentially. So there's maybe going to be, depending how many customers actually get their dolls, that's how many will probably go AWOL or try to during the actual the event of Act 2's. So basically it's a big sort of like tension builder. You've got threat from outside, you've got threat from inside, and you've got the customers scared, panicked, and they'd have like a second act sort of like agenda. It's going to steal a little bit from Alien RPG here and give them sort of act agendas, sort of very, very small ones. And they'll sort of like go into a second mode on their sheets, or their little blurb will have a second and third act as well. The third act is going to be basically the AIs and the ganglia get together and become the new monster, learning from its emotions. The sort of ganglia sort of like uses these new brains to talk and communicate, just trying to sort of like tell the sort of the people around it that it wants children to sort of like to consume. So its original purpose, the sort of ganglia in the walls and the heart, and the first sort of scenario was basically using the sort of blood of the children to keep young, and it's basically going to try and to get more blood to grow faster. Essentially, it's going to be a big cancerous type thing, and it's going to like mutate all this dead flesh into a sort of a bigger bulk. So the more people that get caught by it, the more children that get caught by it. The bigger this thing gets, and the more sort of bulbous it gets. It's kind of like playing into the Blob sort of film, perhaps, that sort of style thing. The players will have to get the most customers out, taking them perhaps through the warehouse, which is the more difficult way, but it's the only way it's open because of the protests outside. So perhaps it's the best route. So they've got a route to get these people out, but they need to go get them and convince them to come with them and all that sort of thing. They've got to do the sort of company policy, sort of emergency training sort of thing, and really get into that sort of headspace. And it's all about getting the customers out safe. And then there'll be a sort of an aftermath. We'll have like fake Yelp reviews, YAL reviews instead, and things like that. So Yeah, I think this is the way we're probably going to go. We're going to flesh this out a little bit, but so far, not a lot of writing. I think we've got 400 words written down here. So that's where we are on day 2, and I'll get back to you on day 3, see how we're doing. All right, day 3. We have completed most or all of the monsters I think I'm going to be using in this scenario. We have Little Maggie Doll as one of our main antagonists. It's going to evolve into something a bit more evil, as you can see here. It goes to Little Maggie sort of turning on and understanding that it's being used and that sort of thing, and causing chaos, and then being infected or taken host with the actual evil veins that are inside the actual foundations of the supermarket. On the other side of it, you have the steak horror, which is like horror and cling wrapped sort of trays. Sort of sprouting all these veins of evil and becoming mobile and start walking around and attacking people or trying to drag them back to create this meat horror, which is the conglomeration of the dolls and the veins pulling all the meat together to make itself a body. This thing's probably going to be found in the warehouse, and it's going to be the grand finale as they try and get out the back. And that's pretty much how I want to sort of herd them around the sort of the supermarket. Starting with the riots at the front, breaking the windows, and them having to move away from the sort of chaos which is joining into the sort of the main of the sort of hub, and pushing them out to the warehouse where they'll find this thing that's been lurking and building in the background. Probably going to limit the Maggie dolls to 10, 5 which are for sale and 5 which are out the back in the warehouse to be taken home by basically the upper management of the Happy Mart, rather than actually sell them, sort of thing. So yeah, that's probably going to be part of the actual scenario. It's basically these are marked at $55, but they're going to be sold for $500 because there's such a premium on them. So I think that's probably going to be the sort of go-to for the sort of storyline, as the sort of shoppers sort of maul in, as the shoppers sort of move in and try and like obtain these and their other sort of small items for their shopping. On the back of these images, which are fairly easily sort of like, again, quite simple. This meat horror took a wee while to do, but the upgrades of Maggie pretty easy. Steak horror is pretty simple. While we're doing this, we're thinking about what these things could do. We're drawing all these things out, looking at their stats, or thinking about their stats even, or their sort of special moves. And we came up with a few rules for them, which can be seen here. So we went from them drawings and we started to stat them out. We gave them a little blurb to see what they were. And Dead of Night is a very, very simple system. You get basically these 8 starting stats: Identify, Obscure, Persuade, Dissuade, Pursue, Escape, Assault, Protect, and they all start at 5/5. But you can cash them in by -2ing the first 2 and creating your own tag. And these game tags can be anything, and these can be switched in when you can get away with it, essentially. For example, you can dissuade a door from opening. You can sort of escape a conversation. So things like Tiny, if you think Tiny could fit into a situation, like squeezing through a hole or to escape, like you've got a better chance at that than you do escape, because that's the you kind of look at it there. So we get mimic voice as well for Little Maggie. It's going to be able to mimic people's voices or record people's voices and use that against them. So that's pretty much the basic setup for Little Maggie, the standard doll. The evil Little Maggie is when they wake up and they start thinking for themselves. So we still have the Tiny, we still have the voice mimic, but we also have machine learning in there. So instead of dissuade at 5 up here, so it's like persuade and dissuade, we've changed it down here. So persuade 7, dissuades 1. You'll see that you add up to 8 instead of 10, and those 2 get put on top of the new skill. So you get machine learning 9, and that'll be basically being able to think things out properly and sort of come to conclusions faster, and like these sort of things. Anything you can think you can fit into. And we go from there down to the Little Horror. Now, the Little Horrors are basically these evil Maggies mixed with the stake monsters, and the stake monsters are going to have basically whipping veins. Whipping veins. So we can see sort of here, sort of the whipping veins, sort of on the actual stake horror there, and we're going to use that to entangle people. So we've reduced like attack, sort of assault, and we've got entangle instead. So we go up here and we sort of combine Evil Maggie and the State Monster into the Little Horror. So it's got Mimic Voice, Machine Learning, Tiny, and Entangle, and it's sort of way it works. So that should be quite cool, and we'll see how that plays out in the game. And to meet it all off, we kind of combine into this sort of like large sort of meat monster. So we've got collective learning 10 instead of collective 9, because we're having multiple dolls essentially. Sort of drew multiple dolls. That's just how I drew it, and that sort of informed how the rules are going to work. So you see, you're sort of working backwards almost, rather than thinking about what the monster is on paper. That's coming later. So we still have Entangle, we still have Whipping Veins, and we still have Mimic Voice as well. And that's pretty much all we did for day 3. But that's another good 400 words, so we're probably up to 1,000 words, which is pretty good for a 6,000 words sort of scenario. We're already at a sixth of what we need, just from the sort of basics here. And see, we've gone into sort of a little bit of detail. So we now have Dino Inc., which are going to be now a company, might change the name, that makes the little Maggie dolls, and they're interested in advanced learning and sort of sophisticated ways of shaping the next generation. And they can be a big bad when it comes down to expanding the lore of Twin Lakes and that sort of thing. So it's another little thing that can get slipped in there, and you're sort of slowly building up this world around these scenarios. So with that, I think the next thing we're going to be doing is the main map. We've got the game on the 29th, and today is the 22nd, with this being done on the 21st. So what we're going to do next is the map. We're going to take some cues from the first map, from the first game that this is based on. This is the sort of ground level of the mansion. We're going to use this as a footprint of the new supermarket. So we're going to get a little bit ahead here because we're actually reusing some assets. And this is a basic sort of template of what a supermarket looks laid out. Going to use that as a sort of guide to fill in some of this. We're going to rip out all these rooms and fireplaces and stuff, and we'll take it from there. Alright, so it's day 4, and we have taken the supermarket sort of layout to heart. We've put it all together, and we've figured out where we want to put everything. So we've got the basic. This is the sort of the husk of the orphanage, which is built on top of. We kept the sort of grand staircase leading up to the sort of bay window. This used to be the music room, and we've made that into like just a sort of fancy doorway at the back here. But the main doorway is going to be here, leading to the car park for easy access through the self-service and checkouts into the actual supermarket proper. We've put everything where we want it, I think, and we've expanded out some of the sort of area here. We've knocked down a wall here and expanded the warehouse out. We've put staff rooms in, toilets, and kind of sort of ballparked where we want the sort of parking and stuff to be as well. All this is storytelling, and should be thought about when you're sort of placing things, how these things are going to actually affect the game and the players. Basically, it's going to start out fairly normal. People are going to come in the front door, they're going to start sort of doing their own thing, and they've got to basically run around after them and make sure they're okay and doing the right thing. But each of these areas will have a little sort of tell or a little find for something to happen. So they'll sort of slowly and gradually sort of reveal what is actually going on. And with that, every time you're sort of placing one of these things, you want to be telling a story. So we have sort of like a little bit of sort of information for ourselves before the game, so we can actually sort of have some reference. These will have perhaps descriptions as well attached to them. We've pretty much added another 600 words to the actual document, so we're up to about 1500, so we're about a quarter of the way there to 6000, and we've practically done no writing. This is just when we're talking about the checkouts. We need 4 checkouts people, so we came up with Baza, Peter, Mary, and Sandy. 3 of these are pretty much activists, or 3 of these are part of the demonstration. They've been hired on early. They've been hired on late, and they're sympathetic to the demonstrators, and they're basically going to cause problems, and they're going to start stealing. Mary's father is going to be a high court lawyer, so they're righteous and fearless. They don't give a crap about what's going to happen here. So they're just going to cause pandemonium. However, the sort of black sheep of the group is Peter, who's a practicing cannibal, and he's sizing up victims and taking notes to be sort of used later. So you can have a little bit of fun with him, and playing into sort of like him, and sort of looking at the tasty customers rather than the food. So we've got this. We've got the food aisles. There's going to be a sort of several raccoons that have moved into the store, and they've made their home in the sort of natural food markets here. So there's going to be like several raccoons for them to deal with. There's going to be like lots of sort of out of date products, and these are going to have to be sort of like constantly updated or filled or told to be filled by the manager. So that's pretty much Josh's sort of area. One of the sort of characters. The checkout's going to be manned by Debbie, so that whoever has got Debbie will be up here, over here at the checkouts and dealing with all this. She's a greeter, and she'll also be hanging out the raffle for the five dolls. We've got the warehouse, which is going to be like a sort of Jenga puzzle. It's like lots of large piles of crates and boxes. So whenever you look in here, there's a chance it'll all fall down on you, and you have to clear it up. And there's also the coveted dolls stored back here. There'll be like four or five kept back here, which will end up being the meat monster. They'll sort of like leak in. They're being kept in a box with some frozen turkeys. And this is where the heart was, in the basement over here, in this frozen sort of frozen storage area. So I might have them up here, or I might have them in the office, and the veins can come and infect them here. There's also going to be a staircase somewhere around here, I think, so they can get onto the roof. I think the only way out of this is probably going to be the police helicopter. So they're going to have to ferry, like, say, so many people back, and they're going to have to choose which ones go first, and all this sort of thing. So it can only carry 6, and we'll see who they choose to go onto this helicopter. It should be interesting to see how they deal with it. But apart from that, yeah, we've got a staff room with various crap. We've got the car park, we've got the generator, which is going to get basically set on fire because it's right next to the bins with all the rats. So the rioters are going to basically go for the bins and go for them sort of things, and they're going to blow that up. This will go out. The power will go out to the whole place. It's going to be a little bit like Mist, I think. That's sort of like, I'm a big fan of Mist, the film, and I think I'm going to sort of take a few things from there as well. We have the bakery with Maple Doohickey. She's an artisan baker, and she's a plant from the Doohickey bakery clan. She's basically there to cause scandals and make sure the supermarket fails. So she's cooking blackbirds into the breads. That's what she's doing. You can discover that as well. It's a nice little horror to put in there as well. So with all this, and the added sort of NPCs with the Mag Dolls and the Meat Monsters, They have a lot to deal with, so there's a lot going on, and a lot to keep up to date. Unfortunately, I have two campaign endings happening over the weekend. I'm running the last chapter of Fever, and I'm running last chapter of Assault on the Mountains of Madness as well, which is Pulp on Sunday, and I've got a video to do for YouTube for Monday, on Monday. So it's probably going to be day 5, which is going to be Tuesday. So that's going to be, what is that? Tuesday the 27th is going to be day 5. So time is getting tight to hit the 29th to get everything done. So we'll see how we get on there. Alright, so day 5 of doing this little project to get the Halloween special up and running. So we started with this, the basic layouts of what we want in the supermarket. Looking at the aisles and how supermarkets function and the sort of flow of them through it and all that sort of jazz. And this is what we came up with. From here, we didn't want to play on this, even though we could. This is perfectly fine for playing any game on. It's got enough information for players to make decisions and weigh up options. However, these games tend to be done on sort of more professional looking maps than this, so we moved over to do something like this. Now, this isn't finished by any stretches of the imagination, but it looks a hell of a lot better, and this is what we've been doing for day 5. We've been sort of upgrading the sort of the quality of the map to something which is a bit more playable, and you can see all the supermarket shelves are a bit bland, they're a bit the same, but they give you a better visual. Welcome to Happy Mart and sort of the trolley area, some trees and stuff, some texture, some more sort of useful things back here, like the office has mail and TV, CCTV and that sort of thing. You've got some stuff in the sort of staff room. You've got a delivery bay now. You've got a sort of keep clear double doors. You've got like bins. You can see a bicycle sticking out of this one. That bicycle could be used by a player. These planks of wood on the pallets could be used by a player. Bin lid, potential shield. You've got like chairs. You've got a knife on the chair here as well, and all sorts of stuff that could be utilised by the players. Now, this isn't the best, and it's probably the worst map, it's probably the least finished map I've played one of these with. I usually get them finished. The last 2 times I have. It's just time constraints with other projects and having to basically fill all these shelves. A bit of a tedious task for just now. I will get round to making these a bit more beautiful, a bit more sort of unique for every aisle, and make them make a bit more sense, and add in produce like bananas and all that sort of stuff here. But for now, this is fine. One of the best things by using vectors is you get to do things like this. These are all assets from different types of maps I've made over the years, and you can basically just pull them out and use them again. So it makes things easier. The more you get, the more you sort of retain. The bigger your libraries build up to be, the faster and quicker you can pull out a map from your ass and make it look pretty good. So we've used these basic shelves that we've used in many kitchens and other sort of assets around the place, and we're going to use them as our basic aisle things. We've got newspapers we built for the recent brownstone, so we're going to use these as part of the aisle as well. And we have boxes which we just coloured and we're using for the back storage area too, and some sacks and stuff as well. So these are basically easy ways to make maps and create better things faster. It's like we used this pier from Final Cut map, and we made like a simple palette that we're going to use for the sort of storage area. Simple things like that make sort of your maps just a little bit more special and easier to do. There's the bicycle as well, which is in the bin. These trees have been used several times in several different sizes. They all sort of end up appearing in the maps because I quite like them. They look pretty nice, and yeah, they're good for most places just to visualize outside areas. and we'll take it from here. I think tomorrow, day 6, we're going to be focusing on some of the crazier sort of customers that will come out of the crowd, and I think we're going to focus on them rather than anything else, just to get some nice visuals for the people they'll be interacting with, rather than having to rely totally on theatre of the mind. It's nice to have a visual along with the sort of monsters for these sort of crazy cookie characters. There should be a cross-section of Twin Chronicles, so you can get to know perhaps some of the sort of local legends or these sort of things. So we're going to do some basic ones first, then we'll do some more sort of nuanced ones later, I think. And with that, we'll see you in day 6. So, day 6 of working on the Dead of Night scenario has come, and pretty much at an end. Today is the 29th day of the game, and this is what I produced yesterday for day 6. These are basic sort of characters I want to introduce into the store. We've gone from raccoons to possums because everyone seems to be on a bit of a possum bender right now, so I think possums are probably a better thing to go with. It might be more cute. People might be more interested in saving them rather than trying to exterminate them, but we'll see how that goes. But we've got Mr. Summers here, who's going to be a sort of old man who believes in aliens, and he walks around in a spacesuit all the time, and he has a pet alligator called Otis, which has a cowboy hat, of course, and they're probably going to be first into the store just to set the tone of the whole thing and make sure it goes off without a hitch. These will be the sort of the icebreaker almost, as the players sort of like see what I want to be playing. I think we're going to focus more on these characters rather than some of the more nuanced things like the area descriptions and some of the NPCs which don't have visuals, like the people on the counters, for example. They might be good to bring in if things are not going well, but I think we should focus on these characters first and get them used to these characters. So moving on from there, we get Mrs. Garrett, who thinks she's a cat. She's a sort of like a daughter of a local sort of local businessman who's quite rich, and people just put up with her nonsense because of who her father is. Sort of very influential sort of character. So Miss Garrett, the younger, is basically, she just goes around and pretends to be a cat just to fuck with people because she can get away with everything. I kind of painted her as a kind of Audrey from Twin Peaks, sort of like fucking with all the guests and all that sort of thing. So sometimes she likes to pretend she's just a cat, and she'll only act as a cat. So they'll have to interact with her and see how that goes. Then we've got the Miss Doomsayer, who is basically she's sort of like a doom and gloom, the world's going to end sort of character who's running around trying to make sure everyone stays out of her way. She's basically just mostly a normal person. She just does this to make sure people don't come up and talk to her. But yeah, she's sort of a death culty type character who can convince people to kill themselves or convince people to do certain things, and she's using it to her own benefit. But she's mostly there just to eat all the crisps and chips and all that sort of thing. And then we have the last sort of one we're going to be using for this session, the Lost Child. This is the small person who's pretending to be a lost child to get himself a sympathetic free Maggie doll and sell them. He's been doing this across the sort of region, and he's been getting away with it. So sort of play on the sympathies of the players. Whether they'll have sympathies or not, I'm not sure. This is a bit of a zanier game, so my players tend to sort of roll with that quite a lot. Sometimes they can be quite malicious to NPCs. Other times they'll be more personable to the wrong types of people and sort of bond with the villains and stuff like this. An odd bunch of players. So hopefully the Lost Child will do pretty well, and we'll see how it goes today. Overall, quite happy with where we're going with this, and it should be a sort of fun sort of session. and I'll give you an update on how that goes. Probably sort of break this vlog up into two parts. So this is probably going to be part one, or the end of part one, before the game is played, and then afterwards we'll take sort of reflection of how the game went, how our designs go, and go over to the players, take their feedback, and basically tailor the game to be more around the more fun aspects, and cut the sort of dragging stuff that doesn't really work. We don't really have much of a story, much of a structure just now, but I think that's fine. Just going into improv, these games are quite improv heavy, quite characterful, quite fun. So I'm happy enough to run it as is, and we'll see you again in the next part after we play the game, see where the dice lie, and take it from there. So thanks for listening, and I'll see you again in part 2 of this vlog.